still not the talk? Comment vous réagissez avec votre nomination par intérim et qui va assurer?
Bon, écoutez, vous faites beaucoup de spéculations pour l'instant, donc je vous dirais c'est une situation sérieuse, mais il faut toujours garder le meilleur intérêt des Canadiens et des Canadiennes. C'est ce que je fais. Et évidemment, il y aura plus à dire au cours de la journée.
Est-ce que vous êtes ministre des Finances en ce moment?
Non, je suis ministre de l'Industrie, des Sciences et de l'Innovation. Et comme je vous dis, c'est une situation sérieuse. Je pense que les gens le constatent. Mais ce qu'on va faire, on va continuer d'agir dans l'intérêt des Canadiens.
Do you continue to have confidence in the Prime Minister?
Listen, the moment now is for us to focus on the best interest of Canadians. That's what we're doing.
Est-ce la fin pour Justin Trudeau, M. Champagne?
Non, c'est juste, c'est théoriquement.
C'est dans l'ordre de succession, c'est lui. Oui, dans l'ordre dans le conseil. Dans l'ordre dans le conseil, c'est.
Pierre vient de commencer.
Puis le troisième, c'est Randy. Strong Eagle. C'est très belle.
Mais on sait juste pas.
C'est très belle.
Parce que.
Peut-être que sa mission n'est pas effective. Peut-être qu'elle est effective au chapeau, et le chapeau est
Des membres? Ben, si on a de la place, on charge le, ouais. Sinon, écoute, j'ai fait des charges de CBC au 135.
C'est juste qu'ils ont changé de
c'est en ce moment. Il sait pas.
J'ai dit comment vous réagissez à votre nomination par intérim. C'est ça ma question.
OK, mais c'était là en ce moment. La question, c'est vous, ministre des Finances, qui a dit non.
À cette question-là, moi, j'ai dit comment vous réagissez à votre nomination comme ministre par intérim. Puis il a dit il y a beaucoup de spéculations.
Yeah, but she, I don't know if she's but that means, yes.
Like Lawrence McDonald to replace the Prime Minister as Prime Minister? Well, it's in order to, it should be Freeland and then Macaulay.
Like if there's a war, what happens?
Designated survivor act.
The Prime Minister could look like that.
Or they can knock it in the house wall.
opposite, I guess, they're there. And the analogies, but I actually do smell burning.
When you saw this much smoke, there was a point.
You know what, I've already given remarks this morning.
Non, parce que avez-vous toujours confiance? Do you still have confidence?
Is this a representative government?
Are you still in cabinet? Madame Scott, avez-vous confiance en monsieur? Vous, absolument, pas du tout.
Excuse me, apologies. Are you going to be the next finance minister?
I don't think so.
C'est qui, là? C'est qui?
You saw it confidence in the Prime Minister.
Dernier étaient sur le point d'apprendre qu'ils étaient bien plus élevés que ça. Cela allait signifier une plus grande inflation et plus de risques pour notre économie, déjà à risque des grands tarifs des États-Unis. Pour poursuivre le chaos, pensons à ceci. Au moment où la ministre des Finances a démissionné, l'ordre de priorité publié sur le site Web du gouvernement signifiait que François-Philippe Champagne allait devenir instantanément le ministre des Finances. En fait, je pense que maintenant, M. François-Philippe Champagne est le ministre des Finances. Mais un journaliste l'a appelé, il a confirmé qu'il ne l'est pas. Donc, ce n'est pas lui. Prochainement, le poste va à Randy Boissonneau. Randy Boissonneau est le troisième sur la liste de précédents, publié par le cabinet de Justin Trudeau. M. Boissonneau, les deux Randy, avait besoin de démissionner à cause d'un scandale où il a eu une fausse identité autochtone et il s'identifiait comme deux personnes pour avoir accès aux fonds gouvernementaux pour son entreprise, un scandale massif. Donc, qui est le ministre des Finances à ce moment? Tout est devenu hors de contrôle. Les dépenses et la bureaucratie incontrôlée ont fait doubler le coût du logement. Il y a 1400 campements de sans-abri qui ont envahi la seule province de l'Ontario. L'immigration incontrôlée a conduit à l'ouverture de camps de réfugiés dans des banlieues du Canada pour faire face à l'immigration incontrôlée. Le gouvernement admet qu'il y a jusqu'à 500 000 personnes au Canada en situation irrégulière ou illégale. La criminalité est incontrôlée et ça a envahi nos rues avec le double de crimes faits avec une arme. Les drogues et le désordre incontrôlé ajoutent au chaos. 47 000 personnes sont mortes des surdoses après que M. Trudeau a libéralisé les drogues dans nos rues. L'inflation est hors de contrôle. À cause de dépenses inflationnistes de ce gouvernement, 2 millions de personnes doivent aller aux banques alimentaires, un nombre impensable il n'y a pas longtemps. Maintenant, nos banques alimentaires manquent de nourriture. Les dépenses incontrôlées ont doublé notre dette et ont fait grimper les taux d'intérêt. Il n'y a pas que Mme Freeland qui a perdu le contrôle par rapport à M. Trudeau. On a M. Fraser, le ministre des Logements, il démissionne en pleine crise de logement. La ministre des Finances a démissionné au beau milieu d'une crise économique ici au Canada. Donc, ça montre que Justin Trudeau a perdu le contrôle, mais il s'accroche au pouvoir. Tout ce chaos, toutes ces divisions, toutes ces faiblesses se produisent alors que notre plus grand voisin et plus proche allié nous impose des droits de douane de 25 % sous la direction d'un président récemment élu, doté d'un mandat fort et nouveau, un homme qui sait identifier la faiblesse. Et on voit la faiblesse au sein du gouvernement libéral. Freeland est le principal ministre de Justin Trudeau depuis 9 ans. Ce n'est pas n'importe quel ministre. C'est le vice-premier ministre du Canada. Et elle a perdu la confiance en M. Trudeau. Regarde ses propres mots. Aujourd'hui, notre pays est confronté à un grand défi. La nouvelle administration américaine poursuit une politique de nationalisme économique agressif, ce qui comprend une menace de tarifs de 25 %. Nous devons prendre cette menace au sérieux. Il faut préserver notre capacité fiscale aujourd'hui, disposer des réserves dont nous pourrions avoir besoin en cas de guerre tarifaire. Il faut éviter les astuces politiques coûteuses que nous ne pouvons pas nous permettre et qui font douter les Canadiens que nous reconnaissons à quel point ce moment est grave. Je sais que les Canadiens et Canadiennes reconnaîtraient et respecteraient une telle approche. Ils savent quand nous travaillons pour eux et ils savent quand nous nous concentrons sur nous-mêmes. Il est inévitable que notre mandat au gouvernement prenne fin. Prenne fin. Et je cite, « Cela ne peut plus durer. » Quand Jagmeet Singh va-t-il travailler pour le Canada au lieu de travailler pour M. Trudeau? Comment ça se fait, M. Singh, que quand il y a 20 députés libéraux qui ont perdu la confiance en M. Trudeau, y compris sa propre vice-première ministre, que vous, M. Singh, ayez toujours la confiance envers ce premier ministre. Il faut maintenant que M. Singh mette le Canada d'abord et mette fin à ce gouvernement désastreux qui a perdu totalement le contrôle. Nous sommes là pour travailler dans l'intérêt du Canada. Et j'ai un message pour tous les libéraux patriotiques à travers le Canada. Je comprends que vos leaders, que ce soit M. Carney ou M. Trudeau, vous ont trahi. Les conservateurs vont travailler pour vous, pour tous les Canadiens, de toutes les couleurs politiques, pour réunir et pour aider le Canada à récupérer après tous les dommages qu'a causé M. Trudeau. On a un bel avenir, mais il faut commencer maintenant de reprendre le contrôle. On va reprendre le contrôle des dépenses, de l'immigration, des frontières, de la criminalité et de notre gouvernance. On va réinstaurer la promesse du Canada. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. What we are seeing is the government of Canada itself is spiraling out of control right before our eyes and at the very worst time. Today, mere hours before Trudeau's finance minister was to deliver a fall economic update that was expected to smash through her already massive deficit targets, she announced she no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister. Canadians were already anxious about the reckless $40 billion deficit the government had announced last spring, But today, in mere hours, they were expected to learn that it was much higher than that, threatening our social programs and our fiscal stability right in the middle of a potential trade war. The Prime Minister, with the help and instigation of carbon tax Carney, pushed Ms. Freeland to bring on massive, unsustainable, irresponsible spending increases that blew through her self-imposed guardrail. He thought that he would simply push her through that guardrail and off the cliff so that she, and not he and Mr. Carney, would take the blame for the crisis that he and they caused. To continue the chaos, think of this. The moment the finance minister resigned, the government's published order of precedent meant that François-Philippe Champagne instantaneously became the finance minister. But now he tells us he doesn't have the job and doesn't want the job. So it goes to the next minister who's on the published order of precedent, and that is Randy Boissonnault, more commonly known as the two Randys, the gentleman who had to resign because he falsely claimed he was Indigenous, falsely claimed that there were more than one Randy when it was all him and all in his head, and he is now technically our finance minister as we speak. We don't know for sure, though, if he'll still be finance minister in 3.5 hours when the scheduled fall economic update is expected to land. That update, by the way, is currently covered by a black blanket underneath a table. No one is allowed to look at it, even though journalists and parliamentarians showed up to read it in briefing rooms to this day, earlier today. So here we are. Everything is spiraling out of control. Out of control spending and bureaucracy has doubled housing costs, with 1,400 homeless encampments taking over Ontario alone. Out of control immigration has led to refugee camps opening in suburban Canada. And then we have 500,000 people in the country illegally, according to government estimates. Out of control crime overtakes our once tranquil streets, with gun crime having doubled. Out of control drugs and disorder add to the chaos, with 47,000 of our people dead of overdoses since Trudeau legalized drug laws, stopped enforcing them, and allowed limitless sums of fentanyl ingredients into our country. Out of control inflation has followed out of control money printing, which has sent out of control demand to our food banks, which are running out of food altogether. Out of control spending has doubled our national debt, boosted interest rates, and threatened our social programs. And it's not just Freeland who thinks this Prime Minister is out of control. Now Housing Minister Sean Fraser has resigned in the middle of a housing crisis. The Minister is resigning, the Finance Minister is resigning in the middle of an economic crisis, and a fifth of his Liberal caucus has lost confidence in him. Justin Trudeau has lost control, and yet he clings to power. We cannot accept this kind of chaos, division, weakness, while we're staring down the barrel of a 25% tariff from our biggest trading partner and closest ally, which, by the way, is headed by a newly elected president with a strong and fresh mandate, a man who can spot weakness from a mile away. Ms. Freeland has been Mr. Trudeau's most trusted minister now for a decade. For 9 years, she knows him better than anyone, and she knows that he's out of control. She said this: "Our country faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including the threat of a 25% tariff. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means we have to keep our fiscal firepower dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford, and which makes Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. I know Canadians would recognize and respect such an approach. They know we are working for them. They know when we are working for them, and they know when we are working for ourselves. Inevitably, our time in government will come to an end. Will come to an end," she said, and I quote. and it is coming to an end, because we simply cannot go on like this. And it is up to Jagmeet Singh now to make that realization. Mr. Trudeau is being held in office by one man, Jagmeet Singh. A fifth of Liberal MPs have written a letter for him to resign. His deputy prime minister has walked out on him. His housing minister has quit. That on top of numerous other female ministers who stormed out after his appalling mistreatment and abuse and dishonesty towards them. 80% of Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister. So why is Jagmeet Singh making the entire country wait for him to get his pension? That is the question today. To patriotic Liberals across the country, my message is this. You supported this government in good faith because you thought it was the right thing for the country. And you are good and decent patriotic people who have been let down by a Prime Minister and his top advisor, Mr. Carney, who have betrayed Ms. Freeland and you. Carney and Trudeau, the backroom boys, have taken the Liberal Party away from anything it used to stand for. What I'm calling for is let's bring home the common sense consensus of Liberals who believed in liberty, Conservatives who believed in conserving it, fiscal responsibility, compassion for our neighbours. These are the shared common values that will bind up our nation's wounds and bring us back together. Now is the time for a carbon tax election to turn the decision away from me or Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Singh or Mr. Carney and put it in the hands of the people. I know that they will make the right decision. Let's bring it home.
Mr. Poilievre, can you clarify, you do not accept the possibility that Mr. Trudeau could resign and there could be a leadership? You think there needs to be an election right now?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because it is not backroom Liberal insiders who get to choose the Canadian Prime Minister, it is the Canadian people. And for Mark Carney to write a fall economic update full of poison pills and then put it on his rival Chrystia Freeland's desk to knock her and Mr. Trudeau out of the game and allow him and appoint himself Prime Minister is about the most undemocratic political maneuver we've ever witnessed in this country's history. The Canadian people deserve to choose who should be their next Prime Minister. Let's put our faith in them.
Is it possible to still have a vote on this, though?
That's up to Mr. Singh.
Will the election itself need to take place before January the 20th, when the catastrophic 25% tariff is slated to come into effect?
It would be ideal to have the election done before the President takes office or within the first week or two of his mandate, so that Canadians would have a strong Prime Minister with the brains and backbone, the strength and smarts to stand up for Canada, facing down President Trump and our American competitors.
But to be clear, do you think there is a process? Is there a process in the House of Commons? We're in a minority government. Do you see a process in which the House could vote no confidence before it rises tomorrow? Is there such a maneuver that you can do?
I think it's really up to Jagmeet Singh.
Freeland resigned hours before tabling the fall economic statement. How should the government now proceed with the Fez? Should it be tabled?
Yes.
Last question.
And maybe the answer is just for them to table the Fez and let's vote up or down on the Fez. It would be a confidence motion. I think the answer is to table the Fez, the fall economic update, and let the House of Commons vote up or down. And if the fall economic update is defeated, then it would be a non-confidence vote and we would proceed to a carbon tax election. Je pense que M. Trudeau devrait déposer la mise à jour économique cet après-midi et permettre un vote ce soir pour permettre la Chambre des communes de montrer si oui ou non on a la confiance ou bien si on va aller en élection pour reprendre le contrôle de notre pays.
Last question.
Do you think Canadians want their Christmas holiday to be interrupted by a federal election campaign?
I think right now Canadians' Christmas holidays are being interrupted by the NDP Liberal hell they're living under. Lining up 2 million people at food banks, 1,400 homeless encampments, a doubling of gun crime, the worst inflation in 40 years, our 6 consecutive quarters of shrinking per capita GDP, $500 billion of investment leaving for the United States. Parents are tossing and turning at night because we have the most indebted households by far in the G7. That's the real hell that is interrupting people's Christmas spirit right now. And I think the best Christmas present we could give Canadians is to let them choose a new, common sense, conservative government that will bring home Canada's promise, so that anyone from anywhere can do anything. Hard work gets them a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, homes, and wonderful Christmas gifts to go under the tree. Thank you.
Well, guess we're going to play you a small commercial while we wait. Thanks for your patience.
Attention, Canadians. Do you feel disconnected from our current political system? This could be our last chance to take a real legal stand for our rights. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history, understand the need for change, and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The power shift to freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate legally replacing the Crown, King Charles III, and our partocracy system with a true democracy, the peoples as the true collective head of state with veto power over our governance, to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future as collective head of state, which was legally owed and kept from us since the patriation of our Constitution, an official decolonization from the United Kingdom of 1982. It's time to correct the past of our government's lies and omissions to the people of our great country before it is too late. People 15 years old and over can sign our Canadian People's Referendum at canadianreferendum.ca and unite for our rights as the collective head of state in our Constitution. Together, we can be the example in reshaping Canada's future, not just for us, but for all peoples worldwide, once and for all. Are you ready to be part of this transformative movement? Join the Power Shift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace and face the change required on your part to shape our future.
doit partager la responsabilité. Je pense qu'on est devant une situation d'élection et non pas devant une situation de démission, bien que cette décision-là, bien sûr, lui appartienne à lui.
Venant une démission, M. Trudeau, il resterait quoi? Il resterait rien comme gouvernement.
Si M. Trudeau démissionnait maintenant, évidemment, un gouvernement qui est déjà dysfonctionnel ne deviendrait pas fonctionnel. Et là, après ça, il y a un ensemble d'enjeux, de course à la direction, de moments de déclenchement d'élection, parce qu'en vertu des règles, il est probable que cette personne-là ne siégerait même pas dans le Parlement avant de se retrouver en campagne électorale. Il y a plein de scénarios très kafkaïens sur lesquels tout le monde spécule présentement. Le plus simple, c'est de s'en remettre à la population du Québec et du Canada, d'aller voir la gouverneure générale au plus tard, au début de l'année 2025, et de faire en sorte que les citoyens puissent composer un nouveau Parlement.
Que va-t-il arriver à la mise à jour économique qui était censée être présentée aujourd'hui jusqu'à nouvel ordre? Je pense qu'on n'a pas voulu la...
Elle va être présentée selon ce que je comprends, mais la mise à jour économique de qui? La mise à jour économique d'un gouvernement vient du ou de la ministre des Finances d'un gouvernement, et celle de ce gouvernement-là dit « Moi, il n'est pas question que je m'associe à ça, puis je me dissocie même des dernières décisions qui ont été prises. » Ça va être la mise à jour économique de qui? De M. Trudeau. Qui est d'accord avec la mise à jour économique qui va être présentée? Alors, c'est un très, très drôle de scénario qui serait très surprenant en n'importe quelle autre circonstance, mais l'état dans lequel est le gouvernement de Justin Trudeau depuis un bon moment déjà fait qu'on se dit « Ah, voici encore autre chose ». Mais ce coup-là est celui de trop. Là. Je le répète, le gouvernement de Justin Trudeau est fini, c'est terminé, et nous devons nous en remettre aux électeurs.
Quel genre de scénario, parce que là, c'est les faits, ce n'est pas possible d'aller en élection maintenant, on va penser au contraire. Alors, c'est quel genre de scénario qui ferait un déclenchement d'élection qui serait comme plausible et acceptable dans un contexte comme celui qu'on connaît maintenant?
Il n'existe plus de vote de confiance à être fait au Parlement à ce moment-ci, à moins que le gouvernement décide d'en faire un. Mais il connaîtrait les résultats avant de le faire. Il saurait à l'avance si le NPD va voter pour la défiance ou pas pour la défiance. J'imagine que le NPD n'a pas envie de se mouiller à ce moment-ci. Si la conclusion est qu'on doit aller en élection, que le premier ministre fasse la seule chose responsable à ce moment-ci, c'est de planifier une visite à la gouverneure générale au tout début de 2025. Maintenant, je comprends que s'il nous le dit tout de suite, c'est comme si on partait déjà. Le travail va devenir pas mal électoral, mais ça a été le cas les dernières fois aussi. On devra respecter le fait que n'importe qui dans la population ou les élus vont avoir au moins des petits bouts de congé des fêtes. Donc, je préconise le début 2025 parce que je pense que les gens souhaitent le début 2025, mais c'est des décisions. Je ne peux pas vous dire, et je ne sais pas ce que le premier ministre Trudeau va faire parce que je pense qu'il ne le sait pas lui-même.
Est-ce que M. Singh peut encore le soutenir? Est-ce qu'il y a une logique derrière continuer de soutenir ce gouvernement-là? Parce que c'est lui qui tient le mot, n'est-ce pas?
Le prix pour soutenir le gouvernement de M. Trudeau par le NPD a déjà sombré dans l'indignité à de nombreuses reprises. Ça serait juste une fois de plus. Je ne sais pas comment les citoyens du Canada vont réagir à ça, mais j'imagine bien que les citoyens du Québec ont déjà porté leur jugement sur l'attitude du NPD qui a dénaturé le mandat minoritaire de Justin Trudeau et de son gouvernement.
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire le fait que Mme Freeland non seulement ne quitte pas, reste en place et annonce qu'elle va se présenter à la prochaine élection?
Votre analyse vaudra la mienne, mais évidemment, on suppose qu'il y a une course larvée à la succession de M. Trudeau. Mais je suis incapable de me mettre dans la peau de ceux qui pourraient avoir ce projet-là au moment où ils le voudraient ou les circonstances dans lesquelles ils le voudraient. Alors, je ne spéculerai pas sur ce qui se passe dans la tête des candidats à la succession de Justin Trudeau.
Et le Bloc est prêt pour une élection financièrement?
Le Bloc est candidature, financement, préparation thématique, plateforme électorale, tout va très bien chez nous depuis longtemps, on le dit depuis longtemps. On avait donné une chance au gouvernement avec des demandes précises, il n'a pas livré ce que les gens voulaient. Évidemment, je n'ai pas l'impression que les gens veulent être en campagne électorale à Noël et au jour de l'an, donc je parle de 2025, mais je pense qu'on est rendu là que ce gouvernement-là a déjà largement dépassé la date d'expiration. Tu sais, je disais un peu plus tôt, ils ont l'air des dingues sur le bord de l'autoroute qui cherchent parce que ça va trop vite. Il n'y a plus de gouvernement. Et là, on arrête ça, là. On arrête ça, là. On s'en remet à la seule instance habilitée à trancher à ce moment-ci. Et ce sont les électeurs du Québec et du Canada. Merci.
Juste un résumé.
Un résumé en anglais.
Oui, mais
Mr. Trudeau's government is over. He must acknowledge that and act accordingly. I believe that the departure of his so important ally, Minister of Finances, Vice First Minister, Prime Minister, is the end of this government, and that at the latest in the beginning of 2025, the Prime Minister should go to the General Governor and ask for the dissolution of the Parliament in order for Quebecers and Canadians to compose a new Parliament that will have the mandate to deal with the real crisis at hand, which is the most important crisis in terms of diplomacy and trade between Canada and the United States in recent history. Somebody needs a mandate, and it goes through a new Parliament. Thank you.
avant la période de questions. Donc, je me demande si on va se coincer ici, ce qui se passe. Are you the new finance minister?
No. So I guess we are still in there?
Yeah.
You guys are taking.
Jenna said it's bullshit. She said, like, I don't know where he's going. Do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister? Do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister?
Are you the Prime Minister?
Who's in charge?
she has no clue where. Kind of got like dirty on the background. Prime Minister's like, I'm resigning, and she's like, have you changed my oil?
Is there GST on that? You just do it now.
Do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister?
I've commented on this several times today.
Who's the new finance minister? Is it you?
Is it him staying on board?
Do you still have confidence? Do you still have confidence?
In the G7.
Do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister? As he comes out to resign. As he comes out to resign. And the 2 laptops come tumbling.
2 recorders as well.
The government is all in the laptop.
Well, we can. You could
Do you still have confidence in the Prime Minister, Minister? Small business. Rachel something.
Richie.
Richie, thank you. Valdez.
Valdez, yeah.
Did we get a technical reply?
What's that?
Did we get a technical reply? It was fun.
Yeah, like yes, I'm going to go to the yeah, this is the second. No, sorry. This is so yeah,
Nous, quelques minutes avant de la vestiaire. Ouais. C'est ça. non, fait que... C'est ça, on va la journée complète. On n'a pas de ministre des Finances. Exposé, il y avait concernant une minute pendant 4 heures. On a plus de premier ministre. C'est qui le deputy prime minister? Deputy? Ralph Goodell. No.
I'd like to take an opportunity to remind members it's very important not to do indirectly what you can't do directly. Be very mindful about the language that you use in the statements or quotations that you have. The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On November 25th, we learned of the passing of John Embury. I worked with John when Ralph Goodale was the Minister of Finance. He was a charter member of the Loyal Order of Goodalians, a fierce band of loyalists to Ralph Goodale, Saskatchewan, and all things liberal. A great communicator, John would navigate us through challenging times with grace, wit, good humor, and a fierce intelligence, all mandatory characteristics of the charter members of the Goodalians. As Director of Communications, he was a calm professional, a super knowledgeable on a whole range of files. John left us too early. He leaves behind his wife Marjo, his grandson, the Dude, his 2 stepdaughters, Cora and Chloe, his mother Margot, and brother and sister Mike and Eden. He was loved and cherished by his family and friends across the country, and he will not be forgotten. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Canada's settlement sector is the foundation for social cohesion, nation building, and newcomer integration. Over 800 agencies are funded by RRCC to deliver a range of services such as language class with childcare support, employment and career training, trauma-informed programs, family centers, and so much more. Last year, over 700,000 unique newcomers were served by the sector, primarily made up of racialized women across Canada outside of Quebec. Despite their success, the Liberals is charting a course to massively cut these services. Many organizations are told that their 5-year contract is not being renewed. Others will face a cut of up to 70%. On top of that, a further deficit reduction plan is being leveled at the sector. And terms like refocus is used to cover pending cuts to IRCC staffing. This will decimate service delivery and negatively impact the economy. The fallout will be felt for years to come. The NDP is calling on the Liberals to stop blaming newcomers for their failures and to immediately reverse these cuts.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. I'd like to highlight today the work of an extraordinary politician. Like a compass in a storm, she's always shown us the way forward. Her calm, competence, and attention to our needs have always been a source of great comfort. Our whip was perfect, guiding our destinies with a delicate yet firm hand. She's stepping down as whip to take care of her father, but happily she will be staying with us. In all aspects of her life, she is and always will be above reproach, dependable and generous. Stepping into her enormous shoes will be a colossal challenge, and without claiming to replace her, I will certainly ensure a smooth transition true to the rich legacy she leaves us. A united caucus that's above reproach, full of competent and on-point people who appreciate each other and work together for the collective good. To the member for Salaberry-sur-Roi, thank you for making the Bloc Québécois caucus the best ever, the best of them all. We love you, Claude.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
For weeks, the Prime Minister has been repeating over and over again that a Team Canada approach is about knowing the time to do the right thing. But he sure doesn't understand that point, does he? Multiple cabinet ministers have resigned, including the finance minister, on the day she was supposed to deliver the disastrous Liberal budget update. In her resignation letter, she said the government needed to issue costly political gimmicks and that the Liberals are focused on themselves and not working for Canadians. And yet the Prime Minister refuses to call an
Hundreds of thousands of jobs are at risk. Because of that, I'm saying very clearly that Justin Trudeau has to resign. All options on the table. Thank you very much. Merci. Thank you.
How many more violent demonstrations, business closures, lost jobs, lost homes, encampments of refugees in Canada's suburbs, tariff wars with allies? One man's ego is not worth this cost. No single person matters more than our country. Team Canada wants the Prime Minister to take his own advice and do the right thing. Call an election now. Let's bring it home. You're here.
I see that the honourable member from Dartmouth Cole Harbour is wearing his finery today, so I can only imagine what this is about. I'm certain all members will want to give their attention. The honourable member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think we could all use a little chuckle today, so with that, I'm proud to deliver this year's Liberal Christmas roast. It was a week before Christmas. Conservative MPs were muzzled. Our investments in housing have old PP puzzled. Their party won't talk about foreign interference. For Christmas, will their leader get his security clearance? Dental care, child care, what more could there be? School food and pharmacare. Thanks to the NDP! They tore up our deal, they started to gloat. But guess what happened on the next confidence vote? Supply management and seniors, the Bloc has lots to say. I don't really understand, Mr. Speaker. Je ne parle pas français. To calm caucus rebels, we cut the GST. A small gift from the Liberals and me. Groceries are high, there's trouble with the mail. But we still have a chance to win Cloverdale? Now, Mr. Speaker, it's not a contest, so I don't mean to brag. But it's only our leader whose name is on a flag. One final thought, though, Mr. Speaker. One final thought, though. Canada ain't broke, though I will admit we may be a bit woke. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, too. May we all get a Christmas card from a Randy or two.
Oral questions. Questions orales. L'honorable.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost control, but he is clinging to power. We knew that he had lost control of the borders, of immigration, of spending, of inflation, of the cost of housing. But now he has lost control of his cabinet. The Vice Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance has stepped down, and she stepped down hours before presenting Canada's fall economic statement with an enormous deficit. When will we have an election?
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à l'Assemblée commune.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is looking forward to presenting the economic statement this afternoon, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the member for University Rosedale for everything that she has done for this country and everything that she will continue to do for this country. Her accomplishments make quite a long list, and her place in history is assured, and we are very proud of everything that she has done for this government.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Yet he clings to power. He's lost control of immigration, lost control of the borders, lost control of spending, deficits, inflation, housing costs. In fact, his former, apparently, finance minister was trying to get spending under control by capping the deficit at an already crazy $40 billion. But he took Carbon Tax Carney's advice and pushed her beyond that guardrail and was trying to throw her off the cliff. She's now resigned minutes before presenting her fall economic update. This cannot go on. When will we have a carbon tax elect?
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government looks forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. But I would also like to take this opportunity to extend my gratitude for all that the member from University Rosedale has accomplished for this country and will continue to do for this country. She has played an integral role in this government. First of all, standing up for Canada and defending NAFTA, bringing forward universal childcare, and the incredible work that she has done in defending Ukraine. We are very grateful for all that she's contributed to this government and to Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
For the Finance Minister. Who are you?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at a time when Canadians are struggling, we are happy to bring forward measures that are going to assist them. Things like the GST tax cut that took place starting this past Saturday, going until February 15th. And while the Conservative leader and the members of his caucus stay focused on us, we're going to stay focused on helping Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it was a serious question. Who is the Finance Minister? After the Finance Minister's resignation this morning, automatically the Industry Minister became Minister of Finance. And congratulations. But he immediately quit. After him, in the line of precedence, it was the two Randys. Well, they don't want it. So now we don't have a finance minister just a couple of minutes before the fall economic statement will be presented. So where's the minister?
The Honourable Leader of the Government,
the Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, our government is looking forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. There are important measures in that update, measures that are important for Canadians. It's time for the Leader of the Conservatives to recognize that while he's focused on us, we are focused on Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, just to underline the chaos we're faced with here, the Finance Minister resigned the day she was to present the fall budget, which was going to contain a massive deficit overrun. The job then went automatically to the industry minister, who immediately resigned, like on the spot, which then went down the line, and the next person in order was the famous two Randys. And they're not available to do the job either. We're now less than 2 hours away from the fall economic update. Why won't the Prime Minister have the courage to come in here, present it himself, and put it for a confidence vote tonight?
I would like to remind all members, as I did during statements today, for members to be careful not to refer to other sitting members by their names, but to use their titles or to use their writing names. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition continues to play politics in this place, we look forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon that will have a series of important measures for Canadians, things that are going to help them with the affordability challenges, that are going to put Canada, Canadian jobs, and the Canadian economy first. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please not take the floor when he is not recognized by the Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. We already knew that between 20 and 40 Liberal MPs no longer had confidence in the Prime Minister. We also knew that 8 ministers would be jumping ship. Today, the Minister of Finance decided to step down instead of presenting the fall economic statement. She wrote, black and white, that she disagrees with the Prime Minister on the best path forward for Canada. So she has also taken away her confidence in the Prime Minister. We are watching this government, this Liberal government, fall apart, and it's pretty ugly to see. Will the Prime Minister call an election? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank my colleague for his question. As I mentioned, as a government, we are looking forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. There are important measures in there for Canadians when it comes to affordability in particular, and we are exclusively focused on Canadians. And we will continue to protect Canadian economy and Canadian jobs. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Deputy Prime Minister has quit because of the Liberals' electoral handouts. She said that Canadians know when we're working for them and when we're focused on ourselves. Mr. Speaker, people can see through their political games. Quebecers don't want these political handouts. Businesses don't want them. Even the Finance Minister doesn't want them. The only person who wants these is the NDP leader and the Prime Minister of Canada. Will they finally stop sabotaging Canada's economy for, so they can buy votes? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I would like to thank my colleague for his question. Cutting the GST on essentials for Canadians is something that's important for many Canadians. And I've heard from many people in my riding who have said that this is something that is important for them. Restaurants, small and medium-sized businesses say that this is something that's important for them, and we are proud of having put that motion forward.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
People can't afford their groceries. People can't find a home to call their own. And the Conservatives are
Order!
Just another reference.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South from the top, please.
Canadians literally cannot afford the groceries they need. They can't afford to find a home to call their own. And now Trump, buddies of the Conservatives, MAGA Conservatives love this guy, Trump is threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada. And the Prime Minister is more focused on himself, on infighting. The Prime Minister cannot remain in that position. Will he resign?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, this is not the time for slogan. This is not the time for partisanship. This is not a time to make jokes, Mr. Speaker. This is about rallying for Canadians. This is a time where Canadians need to know that this House and all the members are standing behind them, that we're going to invest in Canadians, that we're going to invest in this country, that we're going to invest in our workers, and that we're going to invest in our industry, Mr. Speaker, and that we're going to prepare Canada to be the best prepared to be able to deal with our U.S. friends. Mr. Speaker, this is the time where we show that we are all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
So I'll ask again in French. Les gens de la misère.
People are having a very hard time paying for groceries. Young people can't find affordable housing. And beyond that, we have the threat of Trump's tariffs. And that's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada in danger. And instead of dealing with issues that are important for Canadians, the Prime Minister is dealing with fighting in his own party. It's clear that the Prime Minister cannot continue. Will he resign today, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, as I said, this isn't a time for jokes. This isn't a time for partisanship. It's certainly not a time for conservative slogans, Mr. Speaker. It's time, Mr. Speaker, to work together as parliamentarians to defend Canada, to invest in Canada, to defend our workers, to invest in our industry. And, Mr. Speaker, I call on all members of this House to do their civic duty to work for the good of Canada, so that we can face the incoming American administration. Mr. Speaker, today we are all Canadians. Let's work together.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader is absolutely right. This cannot continue. This Prime Minister cannot go on like this. Housing costs have doubled. Food bank use has doubled. The debt has doubled. Gun crime has doubled. And now we face troubling tariff threats from a president who can see weakness coming from a mile away. The Prime Minister must leave this job, but there's only one person who can remove him, and that's the leader of the NDP. Will he put the country ahead of his pension and vote for a carbon tax election now?
Eric.
So, although the preamble to that question dealt with the administration of government, the question itself did not, and the chair has made it clear that we're not doing that. The honourable member from Thornhill.
Prime Minister has lost control. The Prime Minister's own deputy quit just hours before her economic statement, all of a sudden saying, Canadians know when we're focused on ourselves, and describing a newfound disdain for costly political gimmicks. Those are her quotes. Right. This after her own political rival, Mark Carney, wrote the fall economic statement full of things that she didn't want to present. The old boys club isn't in charge. Canadians are. Right. And it's time for credible leadership in the seriousness of this moment, not the fake feminism of this phony Prime Minister. It's time for Canadians to decide. So will anyone or everyone over there finally agree?
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, we are looking forward today to presenting the fall economic statement that is going to have a series of important measures for Canadians. At a time like this, it is important that all of us band together, united as Canadians, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the Canadian economy, protect Canadian jobs, and to stand up for Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, they can't even stand by each other. Hours before delivering the fiscal update, the finance minister resigned. She lost confidence in the prime minister. Last night, the failed housing minister and the worst immigration minister in the history of this country also resigned. A couple of Randys, and now they're up to 9 ministers that need to be replaced. He's lost control of the government. The party of backroom boys is over. The backbench should look up from their laptops, and the NDP leader shouldn't be the only one in this House with confidence in the Prime Minister. Present the statement and call a vote today.
Hear, hear.
Again, I'm just going to, for the last time, order. Order. I'm going to ask members once again to remind themselves not to refer to members by their first names. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure who she's talking about, but I'm still here for now. I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that there are two kinds of people who run for office in politics. There are people who want to do something, and there are people who want to be somebody. And I can tell you, on our side of the House, we want to do things. We want to build the houses to make sure families can afford to keep a roof over their heads. We want to make sure families can afford to keep their food on the table to feed their kids. We want to make sure people can find a job to go to that gives them a sense of pride and allows them to contribute to their communities. On the Conservative side, their guy has been writing essays about why he should be Prime Minister since he was a teenager.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
On Friday, the Prime Minister told Canada's first female finance minister but she was fired, but to keep sweet and present their wildly overspent budget on Monday so that he and an unelected man, Mark Carbon Tax Carney, wouldn't have to take the blame for their broken budget. He then, unbothered, released a video of him making cinnamon buns to get the women folks vote. How can any woman in that caucus defend that man instead of calling for an election now?
Hear, hear.
The order. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't realize cinnamon buns were a gendered food, but what I would say is that her question says more about how that member and Conservative members view women in this country than anything else. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Are facing violence in the streets. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford to buy presents for their kids for the holidays. They can't afford anything. Canadian women are far worse off under this fake feminist Prime Minister. And now he fired Canada's first female finance minister because she dared question him. That sounds pretty familiar. No strong women exist in that caucus. Why would any woman defend this man instead of calling for an election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for that member opposite, but I think she's speaking from her own experience with the Leader of the official opposition when she said that she wasn't going to support him and then spent a year in the hinterlands, Mr. Speaker. But what I will say is that when it comes to actually doing things that support women, we have done that on this side of the House. Whether it's affordable childcare that is making it possible for hundreds of thousands of women to join the workforce, making contraceptions free, or the Canada Child Benefit that is helping families pay the bills. And what do Conservative members of Parliament do every time? They vote against them. So actions speak louder than words, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of the economy. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of so many files. And now he's lost control of the government. It's long past time for an election. This Prime Minister has sat too long here for any good that he has been doing. In the name of God, will he go to Rideau Hall, call an election, and end the chaos?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you well know, and as every member in this place knows, just because a Conservative Member of Parliament wishes something does not mean that it actually happens. But what happened over the past couple of weeks, Mr. Speaker, is the government secured the confidence of this House. And the government does enjoy the confidence of this House, Mr. Speaker, and that is why we will be presenting the fall economic statement later today, which we look forward to sharing with Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. We're watching a historic moment here. The Deputy Prime Minister quit, saying that she disagreed with the Prime Minister on the path forward for Canada. The Deputy Prime Minister no longer has confidence in this Prime Minister to govern. Her lack of confidence is added to that of 8 other ministers. The Prime Minister can't claim to have the confidence of the people if he doesn't even have the confidence of his own ministers. Will he do the democratic thing and put his future in the hands of the people and call elections? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, I know that all of our colleagues want to work for Quebec and the entire country, Mr. Speaker. At a time like this, what Quebecers expect is not to hear fiery slogans, Mr. Speaker. They expect us to work together. This is a moment where we need to work together to prepare Quebec and Quebec's industry to face the American administration. We need to prepare Quebec and the rest of Canada to win in the 21st century economy, and I can tell all Quebecers that that's what we're doing on this side of the House. That's what we wake up and do every day, Mr. Speaker. We get up to serve Canadians. We want to be there for Quebecers and the whole country. We'll continue to do so. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. In 2020, the Prime Minister made Bill Morneau step down because he wasn't spending enough, and he put the current Deputy Prime Minister in his place. She has now quit because she wasn't spending enough. Imagine how much the third Finance Minister is going to have to spend to keep their job. They're going to have to go over to the NDP to find somebody who's ready to spend that much. Seriously, this is a disastrous economic statement. Will the Prime Minister resign? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers know that the Bloc likes to pick a fight, Mr. Speaker. But today, Mr. Speaker, the government is going to present a fall economic statement, Mr. Speaker, in which will show that we're there for Canada's industry and for workers across the country. At a time like now, Mr. Speaker, what Quebecers and Canadians expect from everyone, and especially from the Bloc Québécois, is that we be there to defend their interests, that we be there for families, for seniors. That's exactly what we're doing on this side of the House, and I hope the Bloc will stand up and support the government, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The government is getting ready to table an economic update without a finance minister. Nobody, not even the Liberals, wants to wear this economic statement. It's the ultimate proof that we can't go forward with a $60 billion deficit just to offer political gimmicks. A deficit for measures that neither Quebecers nor businesses have asked for. Measures in this have been denounced by economists, including in the finance department. It's not surprising that nobody in the Liberal Party wants to be responsible for it. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and stop with these measures? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, we want to move forward. If the Bloc wants to go backwards, that's up to them. But on this side, we're going to go forward, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because families in Quebec, Mr. Speaker, who are watching us, need a government that's there for them, that's there for dental care, for kids, for seniors, for industry, for Quebec, for Canada. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we'll continue to fight. We will continue to fight every day for all Canadians because the country deserves that we be there to stand up for it, Mr. Speaker. I would invite members to please not take the floor when other members have been recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows it. The Prime Minister has lost control. He's lost control of immigration. He's lost control of the cost of housing. He's lost control of his caucus. And finally, he's lost control of public spending. And he's lost the confidence of his Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. The Prime Minister has caused a huge amount of damage for Canada. We know it. Most Canadians know it. But now it's time to say enough. Can the Prime Minister please take his responsibility and call an election today? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, the government later today will be presenting its economic plan. It's a solid plan for Canadians, which will ensure fairness, it will ensure good jobs, and it will continue to make sure that Canadians' economic interests are respected. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I can't believe that the Minister believes the words he's saying. We know that this doesn't make any sense. The Finance Minister quit this morning because of this. She knows that none of this makes any sense. And the Finance Minister said that given the threat that we're facing, the way that we do it, that we deal with that will define us for a generation. We know that Canadians are smart. Will the Prime Minister call an election today? The Honourable Minister of Labour and Seniors. It's time, Mr. Speaker, to put that partisanship aside and to rally as Canadians together, because Canada will have to face a protectionist threat from the other side of the border. And we are preparing for that, Mr. Speaker. We will have a solid plan, and I hope that we will be able to count on that member and his party when Canada will face that threat. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, what's happening is serious and it's unprecedented. The Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, quit just a few hours before the fall economic statement. It's just a bomb that's gone off, because even in the United States and around the world, people are talking about this, and in a bad way for Canada. That's the reality that we're looking at today, Mr. Speaker. The former Finance Minister said no more than $40 billion of deficit. The Prime Minister pushed her aside to listen to Mark Carney. Will the Minister of Industry please tell us what Mark Carney's deficit will be when it's presented in 2 hours? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I have a huge amount of respect for the member for Louis Saint Laurent. And as my colleague has already said, we will be presenting the fall economic statement later today, Mr. Speaker. A fall economic statement that'll be there for families. It's an economic statement that'll be there for workers, an economic statement that'll be there for industry, but also, Mr. Speaker, an economic statement that'll be important. And we're expecting that the Conservatives will be ready to support it so that we can face the threat from the United States, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect better than slogans, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect actions. Will the Conservatives have the courage to defend Canada and to vote with the government to prepare Canada for the future, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard that Liberals are a shiver looking for a spine to crawl up, and we're seeing this play out in real time as they've let postal workers and, in fact, all workers down. At this time, when Canada Post CEOs got bonus after bonus while denying fair wages to its workers, this government continues to betray people and cave to corporate interests. As the former Deputy Prime Minister said, Canadians know when their government is not working for them, but working for themselves. New Democrats know where we stand. We stand up for workers every single day. When will this government do the same?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, Canada went through a 4-week postal strike where letter carriers, who we do thank for their service to Canadians and who I know we all have deep affinity for, were out for a very long time. Not only the government, but the Canada Industrial Relations Board has judged there to be a fundamental impasse in the negotiations. We have found an imaginative way forward, a way to get a collective agreement for Canada Post and its hardworking letter carriers, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, they are not listening. The former Deputy Prime Minister said it best today. Canadians know when the government is working for them or for themselves. Well, the Liberals have made it clear where their focus lies. The Minister of Labour's out-of-touch response last week to postal workers is a slap in the face. They deserve safety at work and livable wages. People are tired of the Liberals and Conservatives siding with rich CEOs at their expense. Now Canadians want to know, will the Minister of Labour be the next to resign?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Labour and for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, as that member well knows, postal workers and Canada Post were struggling to find a path forward at the negotiating table. It had gone on for 4 weeks. Canadians were, quite rightly, whether they were in Indigenous or remote communities, whether they were small business persons, whether they were people expecting medicines, Mr. Speaker, we were being pressed to act. We found an imaginative way forward with an industrial inquiry commission. We will ensure that Canada Post operates for the holidays, Mr. Speaker, and we're glad that we did.
Good.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to talk about something that's on everybody's mind, and that is the Canadian Dental Care Plan. Mr. Speaker, 1 out of 4 Canadians skipped a visit to the dentist because of the cost. But thanks to the Canadian Dental Care Plan, more than 1 million Canadians now receive that care, and every day that number continues to grow. Mr. Speaker, applications for the Canadian Dental Care Plan opened for adults with a valid disability tax credit earlier this year. Can the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion please tell us how persons with disabilities are being helped by this important plan? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Diversity and Inclusion.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Dental Care Plan is already saving Canadians an average more than $730 per year. This will help almost 200,000 persons living with disabilities access dental care. Mr. Speaker, we know this is making a huge difference in the lives of people on the ground. We also know, Mr. Speaker, dental care is health care, and we will continue to make sure Canadians are getting the support that they need. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control. Carbon tax Carney wrote the fiscal update, filled it with poison pills, so he could blame the finance minister while pushing her off the fiscal cliff, so he can take her job and eventually the Prime Minister's job. The finance minister figured out the plan, so she resigned in protest. She said she no longer has confidence in this weak Prime Minister and carbon tax Carney's plan. If the Prime Minister's own caucus and cabinet don't have confidence in him, even though the leader of the NDP does, why should Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, in a moment where Canadians are looking for leadership, the Conservative asking the question can only come up with names to lobby towards his political opponents.
Colleagues, it is very important for us to just hear the question and hear the answer. The Honourable Minister, from the start.
From the top.
Mr. Speaker, the very best that the Conservatives can offer to this conversation is name-calling, mudslinging, not solutions to the problems that Canadians are facing. When I talk to people at home, they want their governments to be focusing on creating good jobs to make sure people can afford to put food on the table. They want to make sure that governments are advancing policies to invest in health care and housing. They want to make sure we're doing more to protect the environment. Every time we put policies on the table to accomplish these ends, the Conservatives throw their hands up in the air, vote against, and just sling mud towards their opponents. That is not what people in my community want. It is not what Canadians deserve. We're going to advance solutions that introduce real and meaningful changes that will benefit people who live in this country.
I'm just going to ask the Honourable Member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to hold off on making comments while the other people have the floor. The Honourable Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
He's right. After 9 years of that incompetent minister and the Prime Minister, Canadians are looking for leadership. Carbon tax Carney's Canadian comeback fueled a fiscal feud for the former finance minister. Carney wrote the fiscal update, pushed insane inflationary spending, and brought in the 2-month tax trick while trying to blame the finance minister for taking Canada's finances off a cliff. Will he stop passing the blame on to women in his caucus and call a carbon tax election now so common sense Conservatives can give the power back to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I was wrong before when I said all they had was name calling. Apparently they have alliteration as well. But Mr. Speaker, that is not going to put food on the table for people who need it in my community or his. It is not going to put a roof over the head of people who are vulnerable in this country. Mr. Speaker, if he wants to make this argument about whether women will be supported, I wonder if he has ever approached the leader of the Conservative Party about using hashtags to specifically attract the attention of men who hate women to support him online. I wonder if he's asked questions about why he's canceled the investigation as to who was behind it, or perhaps it's because he knows it was the Conservative leader himself.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, everything is out of control. Home prices have doubled. Food bank use is seeing 2 million users in a single month. And the real fiscal advisor to this Prime Minister wrote the financial update for this afternoon. It included a temporary 2-month tax trick and is set to smash through the massive $40 billion deficit promise that was made by the Finance Minister. When they tried to blame the economic vandalism on her, she quit, saying that she doesn't have confidence in this Prime Minister. Now, they can't tell us how much they've spent. They can't tell us who's in charge. How can anyone have confidence in this Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives seem to know the cost of everything but the value of nothing. They do not see value in investing in childcare, which has not only reduced costs for families, but led to the largest increase in women's participation in the labour force in the history of this country. They don't seem to believe there is value in investing in social housing, in public housing, in affordable housing, so everyone in this country can have a roof over their head. They don't believe in the value of the Canada Child Benefit, which is ensuring middle-class families in this country can put food on the table. So before he continues to sling mud and arrows on this side of the House, he perhaps should look inward and ask why he is not even allowed to advocate on behalf of his community, because his leader has said that's just not in order.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Yeah, we talk about having confidence. This is coming from a minister who said just today that he's not going to continue to serve in the cabinet of that Prime Minister. Just like the Finance Minister who said she doesn't have confidence, or the 7 other ministers over there, or the 1 in 5 Liberal MPs who said they don't have confidence in this NDP Liberal Prime Minister who broke housing, who broke immigration, who broke our finances in this country. These Liberals talk about costs, but they have absolutely no idea how much they've spent. No government has ever spent so much to achieve as little as this government has. We know why the NDP leader has confidence in this Prime Minister. It's for his pension. But why should Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is right about one thing. I did announce this morning that I'm not going to be seeking re-election. But I can tell you, if he thinks that's a matter of confidence, I can tell him it's that I have confidence I am going to be the best father to my kids that I could possibly be over the rest of my life. And that is what is most important to me. But Mr. Speaker, while I have the floor, I should say thank you for the opportunity to engage in the tete-a-tete over the years. This may be one of the last opportunities that I have, and I want to use it to make this point. Canadians want governments to invest to increase the quality of life that they get to enjoy. We seem not to be able to agree on that basic tenet. On this side of the House, we will put measures in place to support families, not advocate for cuts that
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. I would like to quote the Deputy Prime Minister. Canadians know when we're working for them, and they know when we're focusing on ourselves. Mr. Speaker, she's right. 71% of Quebecers believe that the GST vacation and the Prime Minister's cheque are electioneering measures. Democracy loses out as a whole when so many Quebecers believe that a Prime Minister is trying to buy them off. Will the Prime Minister finally realise that there is a limit to putting Liberal priorities ahead of the common good? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Bloc Québécois. If the Bloc were truly here for Quebecers, they would vote for their best interests. For months, the Bloc is contributing to the Conservative tactics of blocking Parliament to stop bills that would make Quebec a better place? Instead of trying to squabble, can the Bloc finally go beyond squabbles and actually work for Quebecers to allow this parliament to function? Quebecers expect better from the Bloc, and we'll always be here on this side of the House to defend Quebecers. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. The Deputy Prime Minister's resignation confirms that the Prime Minister has gone too far in pushing for Liberal measures at all costs. She has confirmed that the Prime Minister is no longer legitimate. He cannot move forward with a full economic update without a finance minister. She confirms that the Prime Minister cannot continue to govern without a new plebiscite from the people. The Deputy Prime Minister has confirmed all of this. Will the Prime Minister finally trigger an election? The Honourable Minister for Labour. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois simply rejects economic updates without having read it. That's why they voted against the Canada childcare benefit. That's why they voted against our dental plan for Canadians. And many Quebecers are benefiting from these programs. They voted against the guaranteed income supplement. They systematically vote against all assistance for Quebecers. So we shouldn't be surprised that the Bloc, once again, is rejecting our measures that will help Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Regina-Capel.
Carbon Tax Carney is the Prime Minister's official economic advisor, and his plan was always to push out the Finance Minister and take her place. Let's look at his advice so far. He forced her to bring in the GST tax trick. Carney also forced through insane inflationary spending, smashing through that $40 billion guardrail. Carney's economic plan is so bad, the Finance Minister resigned in protest rather than humiliate herself into reading his homework. Now nobody knows who the Finance Minister is. Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Why won't the Prime Minister do the only honourable thing left and let Canadians decide for themselves in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another day, another attack against Canadians from the Conservative Party of Canada. Anytime someone steps up who disagrees with their vision for Canada, what do? Personal attacks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than the slogans and personal attacks that we get from Conservative members of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina-Capel.
The attacks on this government's economic record are coming from inside the Liberals' own cabinet, Mr. Speaker. And it looks more and more like Carbon Tax Carney's plan to push out the Prime Minister is working as well, too. For Carbon Tax Carney, it's always been profits over people. Look at his record. Since he became the top economic advisor to the PM, he's moved his own company's headquarters to New York City. He got caught unethically lobbying the UK government. And his firm Brookfield is now looking for $10 billion in taxpayers' money for a new investment fund, which would be managed by Brookfield, his own company. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better than this government in shambles. Why not call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide for themselves?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the People's House, and in it we should be debating things that are pertinent to the administration of government. But what we hear from the House Leader from the Conservative Party of Canada is attacks on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. The person he is talking about is not a sitting member of Parliament, is not a cabinet minister. It is someone that they are attacking simply because they do not share their vision of Canada. Mr. Speaker, every single Canadian deserves better than what we hear from the opposition today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
The Prime Minister's lost control. Hours before delivering a fiscal update, the Finance Minister resigned, joining 1/5 of the Liberal caucus and saying she doesn't have confidence in the Prime Minister either. And there's only one person left keeping this Prime Minister in power, and that's the Leader of the NDP. The fall budget is scheduled to be tabled in 54 minutes, and we don't even know who the Finance Minister is. The Liberals' own cabinet order on succession states if it's not her, it's the Industry Minister, but he says he doesn't want to. So that means it's supposed to go to the disgraced member from Edmonton Centre. The question is, will the other Randy be Canada's next Finance Minister? And how much is he investing in fraud?
Again, I've asked members to please not do indirectly what they can't do directly by referring to a member by their first name. The Honourable Leader... Order! The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, all we see from Conservative members of Parliament is personal attacks and mudslinging against Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what we all need to be doing right now is standing united for our country, making sure that we are protecting the Canadian economy, Canadian jobs, and making things a little bit easier for Canadians. We look forward to presenting the fall economic statement later this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Speaker, our government takes the safety of children seriously. That's why we put forward a comprehensive plan to bring Canada into the 21st century and change our online world, making it safer for kids and better for all. The Conservatives are blocking the plan and they're standing in the way of a better future for our kids online. Parents want the Online Harms Act. Experts want the Online Harms Act. Can the Minister of Justice explain why C-63 must be passed to keep our kids safe?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, last week I asked for unanimous consent to split the Online Harms Act and advance the child protection measures as soon as possible. Every single party got on board except for the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party said no to forcing the removal of child sexual abuse material from the internet. They said no to Amanda Todd's mother, Carol. They said no to Rehtaeh Parsons' mother and all the other parents who are begging us to act. While Conservative inaction keeps child sexual abuse material online, on this side of the House, the government will continue to fight for victims, parents and kids to keep them safe.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. The Prime Minister has completely lost the plot. He's lost control of immigration, of our borders, of public finances. He's also lost the confidence of 20 or 40 members of his caucus. He's lost the confidence and trust of his right-hand woman, the former Minister of Finance. The Prime Minister has lost everything. Will he finally let go and trigger an election so that Canadians can take back control of their future? The Honourable Minister for Immigration. For Innovation, rather. Mr. Speaker, I am not a new minister of anything, not immigration or anything else. We have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives. Today, what the government will table is an economic update that will be here to invest in Canadians, invest in industry, invest in our workers. But, Mr. Speaker, what we've seen today during question period is deplorable. Canadians who are watching us today expect better from the official opposition. Now is the time to work together to defend our country, to be ready for the next US administration. It's disappointing to see that the opposition is playing political games on a day like today. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I can't quite believe what I just heard from the Minister for well, not the Minister for Finance, he said no, but the Minister for Innovation. The Minister is out of control. His former right-hand woman was very striking in her letter. We have to preserve our fiscal capacity against the United States. It's pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism. We need to recognize the gravity of the moment. The situation is dire. Canadians need to work. So what do we need? The Honourable Minister for Labour and Seniors. Mr. Speaker, it's not by shouting slogans that this member will claim to create unity in our country. Our government has a serious plan to move forward. We will, through our full economic statement, provide for prosperity for all Canadians, and we will be here to protect Canadians against any potential threat.
The honourable member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
The Prime Minister is spiraling so bad, and his obsession for power is dangerous. It's actually dangerous, and it is killing people every day. In Peterborough, and the Peterborough and area families are suffering the greatest rates of food insecurity ever recorded. Do you know what food insecurity means, Mr. Speaker? Starvation, hunger, children. Enough. This is as serious as it gets. The finance minister quit hours before she was supposed to do this, and she doesn't have confidence in this Prime Minister. No one does. This man is a disgrace, and we need an election now.
Ask member, please, to be very judicious in referring to any member in this place. Order. Order. The Honourable Minister for Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we've made investments to ensure that Canadians, including those in Peterborough-Kawartha, have the support that they need, whether that be through affordable childcare, whether that be through an HST holiday, Mr. Speaker. The people of Peterborough-Kawartha can rely on us, can know that we on this side of the House will fight for them when their Member of Parliament will do everything they can to oppose these supports.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, children in Canada are just not safe online. Our government wants to join the many countries that have now adopted online safety regulations. Yet the Conservatives are preventing our Online Harms Act from moving forward. In fact, shockingly, they're blocking our efforts to remove child sex abuse material from the internet. How disgusting. Can the Justice Minister please describe the importance of Bill C-63 to parents and children and explain why Canadians so urgently need this law now?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the Online Harms Bill is the product of 4 years of consultation. It is comprehensive legislation that will remove child sex abuse material from the internet. By blocking that very act, the Conservatives have made a clear choice that they will not prioritize the safety of our kids. They don't stand with parents. Amanda Todd's mother, Carol, said she's been waiting 12 years for this type of change. We need to pass this legislation to do right by Carol and every other parent of every other child who suffered abuse online. The question for Canadians and for that party is, will they stand with us and keep kids safe? Yes.
The Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
The Marriage After 60 pension clause is dated, sexist, and unfair. All parties agree it should be eliminated. But the Liberals have sat on their hands and let veterans and their spouses down. The Liberals' former deputy leader said it best, Canadians can tell when the government is focused on themselves and not on real people. And failing to remove this clause proves it. When will the Liberals stop labeling women gold diggers and get rid of this archaic, sexist clause?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Veterans Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question and also to take a moment to thank the members of the Canadian Armed Forces for their service. Mr. Speaker, when a person serves in the military, we all recognize that their family serves with them. Our government is sensitive to the situation of widowed spouses who have married veterans after the age of 60, and our government is committed to improving and supporting members of their family as we move forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my last question in 2024, I think of the IPCC report. I'm sorry.
Yes, I mean, colleagues, really. I'd like to just hear the Honourable Member. She's at the far end of the room. It's difficult for me to hear, and I would like her to please start again. The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my last question in 2024, I think of the IPCC 6th assessment report that if we do not globally reduce emissions dramatically, peak before and see dramatic reductions at the latest, this is a quote, at the latest before 2025, we will shoot way past the Paris Agreement targets, way past 2 degrees Celsius, and face climate disaster. I think of the words in that film, The Age of Stupid. What were we thinking? To avoid the opportunity to save ourselves when we had the chance. Can the Honourable Minister give us any excuse, but perhaps this question period answers its own question?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable colleague for her question. I would like to remind her that everything we've done since we've been in power in 2015 has meant a 43% decline in emissions in Canada, Mr. Speaker. Greenhouse gas emissions are at their lowest level in 25 years, 27 years, in fact, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is working. We're helping the economy, we're creating jobs, and we're fighting pollution.
Affaires courantes ordinaires. Dépôt de documents.
Tabling of documents.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Double News hasn't broken the story yet.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36.8a, I have the honour to table in both official languages.
Ask all colleagues, please, to leave the chamber quietly so that I can hear what the honourable members depositing.
I do have a few things I'd like to say that are very wonderful about the future. Ready to go? Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 36.8a, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 46 petitions. These returns will be tabled in an electronic format.
Introduction of government bills. Déclaration des ministres. Rapport de délégation.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations.
Presenting reports from committees. The honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I truly have the honour today, as we get into the end of 2024, to present in both official languages the 23rd report of the Standing Committee on International Trade, entitled Canada's Supply Chain and Expanded International Trade, Challenges and Measures for 2024 and as we move into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Fleetwood Port Kells.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour to present in both official languages the 9th interim report of the Special Committee on the Canada-China People's Republic of China relationship, entitled Canada's Indo-Pacific Strategy 2 years later. Our diplomatic, economic and military presence is valued in the region, and we're making investments in long-term relationships that will be very beneficial for Canada and that region in years to come. Pursuant to Standing Order 109, the committee requests that the government table a comprehensive response to this report.
The honourable member for Mississauga Malton.
I have the honour to present in both official languages the 16th report of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security in relation to the motion adopted on October 23rd, 2023 regarding the growing problem of car thefts in Canada. Thank you very much.
I understand that the official opposition is going to be presenting a dissenting report. The honourable member from Kildone and St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to put on the record that Conservatives of Public Safety Committee have included a dissenting report on the Public Safety National Security Committee auto theft report. We heard a lot of testimony from police that this government's soft on crime measures have increased auto thefts in this country. We need tougher bail measures. We need tougher criminal code sentencing penalties for those responsible for auto theft. Conservatives have brought forward repeated measures to do so, voted down by this Liberal government. It's very clear, Mr. Speaker, and we've reflected this in our dissenting report, that the only way we're going to get less auto thefts in this country is if a Conservative majority government comes into power and brings in those criminal code changes to toughen up our measures and ensure the people responsible for stealing cars are put behind bars. That's what's going to happen if a Conservative government comes into power. We've reflected this in our dissenting report, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to contribute that to the public safety report on auto thefts. Thank you.
All right. Oh, I see that Mr. Dubourg, I see that the honourable member from Bourassa has his hand up. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Bourassa.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two reports to table. First of all, I have the honour to table in both official languages the 17th report of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, entitled Supplementary Estimates B, 2024-25, votes 1B and 5B, under Department of Veterans Affairs. And the second report, Mr. Speaker.
To present in both official languages the 18th report of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, entitled The Persian Gulf War Was a War. Pursuant to Standing Order 109, the committee requests that the government table a comprehensive response to this report. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the honourable member. I believe that the official opposition will present a dissenting report.
The honourable member for Moose Jaw, Lake Centre, Lanigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to table this supplementary report with the House to ensure that the voices of veterans are heard. Over the course of the study in the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, we heard from many different veterans, particularly from veterans who served in the war in Afghanistan, who continue to be ignored and disrespected by this Liberal government. The committee agreed to study the designation of wartime service, which extends beyond just veterans who fought in the Persian Gulf War. In fact, even veterans who fought in the Persian Gulf raised this point several times. Yet the report tabled in the committee completely neglected to mention even a single veteran who fought in Afghanistan. Veterans put their lives on the line in combat and graciously agreed to travel to Ottawa and share their experiences with the committee, so we owe it to them to include the wisdom they shared with us. Mr. Speaker, Common Sense Conservatives want to make it clear that we are listening to veterans, and we won't let this Liberal government and their NDP allies to continue to ignore their concerns. Thank you.
Thank the honourable member. Introduction of private members' bills. First reading of Senate public bills. Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Maloney, moves that Bill C-276, an act respecting Ukrainian Heritage Month, be now read a first time. The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to introduce in this House Bill S-276, an act respecting Ukrainian Heritage Month. This bill has passed the Senate, and if passed here in the House, the bill will declare September of every year Ukrainian Heritage Month. I'd like to thank the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for co-sponsoring this bill with me, and I hope members of all parties will support this bill. The first Ukrainian immigrants to Canada came on September 7th, 1891, and today there are approximately 1.4 million Canadians of Ukrainian descent. They have made an important impact on our country. It spans coast to coast to coast, whether that be economic, social, political, or economic life. At the same time, Canada has welcomed and supported Ukrainian Canadians. Canada was the first country to recognize Ukraine's independence. Canada has recognized the Holodomor as a genocide, and Canada has been a global leader in supporting the Ukrainian people in their fight against Russia's brutal invasion, and we have said that we will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win. Ukrainian Heritage Month would offer a special opportunity for us to celebrate Ukrainian heritage, the role Canada has played in supporting Ukrainian Canadians, and the contributions that Ukrainian Canadians have made and continue to make to Canada. Slava Kanadi, Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
When shall this motion be read a second time? At the next sitting of the House. Motions. Motion. Présentation des pétitions.
Presenting petitions.
L'honorable député d'Algoma, Manitoulin.
The honourable member for
Attention,
Algoma,
Canadians.
Manitoulin.
Do you feel disconnected from our current political system? This could be our last chance to take a real legal stand for our rights. It's time to shift the political power to its rightful owners, the Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples of Canada. Dive into our history, understand the need for change, and embark on the quest for true democracy. Are you concerned about our nation's commitment to human rights and self-governance? The power shift to freedom aligns with vital treaties and international laws enabling us to claim our rightful place as collective head of state. We advocate legally replacing the crown, King Charles III, and our partocracy system with a true democracy, the people's as the true collective head of state with veto power over our governance, to ensure your voice counts more than party interests. When our national collective civil and political rights are respected, your influence on policies will be direct and impactful. Join us on this noble struggle to make every Canadian and Indigenous peoples a meaningful participant in our future as collective head of state, which was legally owed and kept from us since the patriation of our Constitution, an official decolonization from the United Kingdom of 1982. It's time to correct the past of our government's lies and omissions to the people of our great country before it is too late. People 15 years old and over can sign our Canadian People's Referendum at canadianreferendum.ca and unite for our rights as the collective head of state in our Constitution. Together, we can be the example in reshaping Canada's future, not just for us, but for all peoples worldwide, once and for all. Are you ready to be part of this transformative movement? Join the Power Shift to Freedom movement by the Canadian People's Union and be part of a bold vision for Canada's future. Visit thecpu.ca for more details. Embrace and face the change required on your part to shape our future.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back shortly, I guess, with whatever Trudeau is going to come up with. And stay tuned to see exactly what his next move will be. Thank you. Bye-bye.